Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan. And this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and her name is Barbara Spaulding. She is a LCSW anxiety coach. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing great. Doing great. Um,
Um,
yeah,
Real quick, did I
welcome.
say
Thank
your
you.
last name right?
Oh yeah, Spaulding is pretty basic.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
No, that's okay. And thanks for having me. I love that you're doing this. The
Of
world
course.
needs this stuff. They need to know there's an answer to things.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And the thing is that everyone's answer is a little bit different.
Hmm.
But that's kind of why the name of the show is Retrieving Sanity. We have to work for our sanity a lot of the time, and it's just all over the place.
Right.
Whenever you spill the marbles, they go all over. They don't just go right in front of you.
Right.
So,
That's the truth. That's true. So I just really appreciate being on the show. And the thing I like to start with is that
mm,
I had panic attacks for about
mm,
15 years. My first one being 1979, which definitely ages me when I tell you how long that's been. But when I had mine, nobody knew anything
mm,
about it. There was no Facebook,
mm,
there was no social media, there was nothing. And honestly, even my doctors didn't know what it was. So I went through
oh,
15 to 20 years of, I can say hell, right? Hell with
mm,
it. Um, Not knowing, trying to figure it out. And
mm,
spent years and years running out of grocery stores, being terrified literally of myself, not knowing what was going
mm,
on, symptoms, palpitations, lightheadedness, trouble
mm,
catching my breath. All of the symptoms we know are anxiety related.
yeah.
And every day I struggled with it. And what I realized when I look back now is that I was scared all the time. I
Mm,
just was scared. I was scared of the symptoms. I was scared of
mm,
everything. And everything I tried to do, I tried to avoid it. So mine
mm.
seemed to start in stores. And
Oh.
so I would stop going to stores. Well, we didn't have
Mhm,
online shopping then, or I probably would still be anxious. So I had to go, right? I had to go back and I would get
mhm,
anxious as I got towards the door and I would start having heart palpitations and, you know, trouble catching my breath and my legs would be wobbly and I'd put my hand on the door and turn around and run the other way.
mm,
And in that moment, what I did was I increased my anxiety, but I didn't know that.
yeah,
So sometimes I could get through half of a store, but I was
mhm,
always on hyperspeed. Gotta go, gotta go. Hyper
mhm,
alert to what's going to happen. Is it going to happen? When's it going to happen?
yeah,
And all of you out there that have anxiety and panic, there's a lot of people with it. Or do a
mhm,
lot of what if thinking, what if from this, what if the sky falls, right? Well, if it
mhm,
falls, can we really control that? No.
no.
What if? And for a lot of people, it's paralyzing, right? You're laughing.
Oh, yeah,
Why are you
because
laughing? You've been
because I
there.
know I've been there. Yeah, I would get there all the time too. It's not necessarily I get out. It's sometimes it's a pitfall. You
Yep.
know.
Yep. And so while mine was going on, amazing when I think back, I actually went through
Mhm,
graduate school and
mhm,
I loved school at that point. And I sat at the door every
mhm,
class. And if I told a group of people with anxiety, why would I sit by the door? They know exactly why. What if I
yeah,
have to leave? And the entire time it took me to get that degree, I never actually left. But I knew one day, what if? And
uh
so
huh,
I would sit, kind of with that anxious part going, we got to watch for this. We have to be careful. And that actually makes you more anxious.
mm,
So the problem is we deal with our anxiety the way we would as if we were in danger, right? Our
yeah,
danger part is our anxious part. It's designed for survival. So let's say we're talking and a bear walks into your studio there, you could have that reaction, right? Fight,
yeah,
and then you're going to fight, flight, or freeze. But
mhm,
there's no bear. There's never any bears in our life. But we think, like, okay, I'm going in the store and I'm going to get anxious. Now I'm
mhm,
scared. Now my
mm,
anxious part wakes up and she's ready to take over. The problem is, I believe those anxious parts are like 5 years old. So we don't really
mm,
want our 5-year-old parts being in charge. They don't have coping skills. They just know how to react,
mhm,
avoid, fight, or flight, or
yeah,
freeze. I was a
mhm,
I was a flighter. But I'm 68 now. I was in my 20s. I could run. Now I'd be in trouble. Now I'd have to do
uh,
something else. But over time, it got worse and worse. I started
mhm,
lying to friends. I can't get together. I have to work late. That was a lie. Or
mhm,
I can't meet you at the store. I have to drive my own car because that was a lie. So I started
mhm.
doing things to protect my anxiety so I didn't understand it. And I was
Huh.
doing things with people that I knew were lies, and I wasn't a liar. So
Mhm,
now the anxiety was starting to really change who I was. And I had just gotten married when they started, still married to the same guy. So he went through it with me. But
nice.
one day I was literally, we've been through a lot, 44 years.
Congratulations.
I thank you. I was in a store and I thought, if this happens again, I get anxious again. I'm standing there starting to feel anxious. Just kill me because I can't do
Mm,
this. It's
mhm,
taking over I'm a newlywed. It's taking over my life. And I thought, come and get me then. Wherever anxiety is, come get me. Come on. And
mhm,
literally nothing happened. So this was about 13, 14 years into it and nothing
mhm,
happened. I walked around the store and I realized, well, where is it? What kind of mind game is this? And that was the
mhm,
beginning of unwinding what was going on and figuring it out.
mm,
So now it's 30 years later. I started working with people. I got my social work license. Um, Actually, in the beginning, I didn't even want to talk to people about anxiety because I was sure that I would get it talking about it. But I learned and I started trying different things, and I have been
mhm.
anxiety free for, well, at least 25 years.
Wow,
So,
that
and
is way
that
too cool.
is the most important thing for people to get. I still have stress. I still have
Mhm,
had grief. I've still gone through life, right?
mhm.
Life's not that easy. I've gone through everything, but never been anxious like that or panicked again.
Wow.
And I absolutely believe, partly from working with people for 30 years, that people
Mhm.
can get there.
Yeah. I mean, if your experience says so, then for sure. And that is way too awesome because a lot of people like myself will fall into that anxiety and panic, and it'll just kind of come and go for me. Like a lot
Hmm.
of the time, it used to be constant, much like yourself. But for me, it'll be like, show up a little bit, and then like I've learned how to like deal with it manageably. But it sounds like you've actually written a book about
Oh my
this,
goodness, I
correct?
did. Isn't this convenient? And it's funny that I found your show because it's Anxiety and Panic, Your Path to Recovery.
Ah.
So, one of the things I've learned, and I do have a group of therapists and coaches that work with me, and in training some of them, what I've learned is that I think therapists are wonderful, but I think
Mm,
often they're taking the wrong route with this. We
mm.
can talk about your anxiety forever. We can figure out
Oh yeah.
why and what, and if you have trauma and all of that. But if you don't learn how to manage what to do when your body is hyperventilating, your breathing is shallow, you want to run, and you're what ifing, if you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
practical skill, you'll fall back to your anxious skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you'll be doing is practicing anxiety. Now, you probably
Ah.
would agree that you've practiced that enough, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tiring.
It's exhausting. I know.
Mm-hmm.
So the trick is to start practicing being calm.
Mm.
And a lot of people's reactions, oh, I have no idea what that is. And I know that that's true because if you did, you would do that, right? I mean, I don't
Yep.
know how many doctors would say to me, oh, and if I always they start out with, oh, honey, I know I'm not going to get help. Well, honey, you just need to calm down. You need to relax. If I could do that, I would. If I could have, I
Yeah.
would have.
Mm-hmm.
But the book is 18 chapters. It's not that
Okay.
big. I do groups, but it's actually the book came from the groups I do. And
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
stories to kind of help explain, and then it's skills. This is a skill. This is the exercise. Do this, you'll get better.
Huh.
And you don't need all 18. You probably only need 5 or 6. And you can individualize it because it's your path to recovery.
Right
So
on.
not everyone has panic. Some
Mm-hmm.
people have generalized anxiety and they don't have panic attacks. Most
Right
people
on.
with panic attacks do have generalized anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, I've talked to people that never had a panic attack, and yet that's their biggest fear. So they avoid
Huh.
things because
That might
they're afraid, right?
it might give them panic, so they avoid. So it's like the placebo effect, but with anxiety.
Yeah, right, right. Well, and whatever you're avoiding is going to, it actually it fuels anxiety.
Hmm.
So that part of this, well, there's a lot of things to learn. I think that it's really about skills. I think people, because
Okay.
it's so scary, and I get that. I was there. I was
Mm-hmm.
a full grown, adult running from the grocery store as if I was going to die in there. I know that doesn't make sense. I know it didn't make sense. But there is
Mm-hmm.
nothing that would have stopped me. You could have stood at the door and I'd have knocked you over. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way out to the car
Yeah.
because for me, that was my safe place. But the truth is, if we don't change that and start
Mm-hmm.
looking at what's really going on in that moment and write it differently, we'll keep doing the same thing and
Yeah.
expecting it to go away. It'll keep being there.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to always talk to people about changing their relationship with their anxiety. Because when you get anxious, do you say, "Oh, I'm so happy you're here. I'm really enjoying this," right?
No, normally it goes more like, ah, crap. What is it now?
Right, right. And maybe a few swear words
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and see while you're doing that, you're talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the self doesn't really like to be talked to like that. And it's also, you can't heal something you can't feel. I know it's cliche, but the more you reject your anxiety, the bigger it's going to get. And when
Yeah.
we're at war with it, we always lose. So when I first introduced the idea of changing your relationship with anxiety, people say, "No, I don't want a relationship with it." I say, "Okay." And you already have one. It's just not very pleasant, but you have one.
Yeah.
So we have to start with where we're at. We start with learning awareness, which can be scary. Well, I don't really want to look at all my symptoms. It's scary. So we work on breathing. We work on, like my skills are based on knowledge, awareness, and then very practical skills. For
Okay.
instance, when you get anxious,
Mm-hmm.
what's the first thing you say? You just said it. Oh, crap.
Yeah. Oh, crap.
And then what happens? If it's okay if we
Uh,
talk about yours.
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, for me, I'm a very situational person, but let's just say the generalized feeling, like, oh crap, I'm in trouble again, is usually the first one. Like, I messed up, like, I did something wrong. What was it?
And that's why you have anxiety. So you're causing it. You did something wrong to cause it.
Yeah. That,
Okay, so add this idea. And you don't have to believe me yet, but if I said your anxiety is trying to protect you, in that very moment, what is it trying to protect you from?
It's usually trying to protect. Part of me wants to say ego, but I don't know if it's necessarily ego. But at the same time, it's really trying to protect the younger part of me that was always terrified growing up. So
There you go. And so when you were, tell me if you're uncomfortable with this, but when you were younger and you got scared, what were you told?
suck it up.
Okay.
Like stop being scared. Like stop. Like that's silly. So,
Yeah.
but those were usually not placed in that tone.
Yeah, I'm getting that. But
Uh-huh.
see, the thing is, those messages, I mean, especially that is very common with anxiety, that we learn you're too sensitive. You can't have your feelings. Suppress, oppress feelings show up as anxiety. So
Yep.
if you think about it, when you're saying, yes, my anxiety is probably trying to protect me from feeling that as that hurt, and then you say, oh crap, great, what did you do wrong? You started doing some of the same thing. That's the way we are. But if you learn, oh, this is what's going on. So now I know when I get scared, you could say, and I get a little anxious, what if I said, it's okay, I love you anyway? Or whatever kind thing you would say to somebody you really care for. All of a sudden, your anxiety goes, oh, okay, thank you. And it will hopefully settle down. And you become the adult in charge. you don't want your anxious kid part in charge, because all it's going to do is get more anxious. It doesn't have a
Yeah.
lot of, our kid parts didn't have a lot of skills. The adults
Mm.
around us were supposed to be teaching us that. So,
Yeah.
like, I'll share, I always was very, very sensitive. I probably was a
Mm.
counselor when I was 6. And all I heard in my life was, you're too sensitive. You're too sensitive. Well,
Mm.
at some point in adulthood, I realized, nope, I think the rest of you are not sensitive enough.
Yeah.
And
Right.
this is who I am. So obviously it works as a therapist. But what I've realized is that being sensitive also means you have to learn how to protect it.
Mm.
So when I would get anxious, it was because my anxious part was scared. And here,
Mm.
think about it. I would go to the store, and the whole ride, oh my gosh, I might get anxious. Then I'll be embarrassed. Then what will happen? I'll have to run out of the store. By the time I got to the door, I was already anxious.
Mm.
At no point did I know at that point to say, it's okay, Barb, we're going to do our breathing. I have skills. I'm going to do my 3 words. I already have calm skills in me. None of that was
Mm.
happening, right? Because I didn't know that. So
Uh-huh.
all I could do if I wanted to keep going was fight,
Mm.
or what I did a lot was run through the store. And probably people thought, whoa, what is with her? But sometimes I would only do one aisle and then leave, and then come back
Oh
the
wow.
next day. Then I would try shopping earlier, shopping when the seniors were there, shopping at night. None of that made it go away, though. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem. Nothing
Yeah.
you do to fix your external environment or little comfort boxes is going to make it
Mm-hmm.
go away,
Mm. So it's all
because
on the inside.
it's all an internal process. That's good and
Mm.
bad, but I think we have more chance to really understand and then learn what we need.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Uh, and one of the things that I really like that you're bringing up is the feeding of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like it's a perpetuating, like a negative feedback loop.
Yeah.
So you started a little bit and it just perpetuates until you put an end to it. And I
Right.
think for myself and others, it's always trying to stop it before it gets that first full revolution, because after that it's kind of like in its own uh, media, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's on its own role. And
Right.
so trying to stop it after at that point, in the thralls of it, it feels like I'll never get out, but it's really, for me, catching those early signs of like, oh hey, my breathing just increased a little bit, I'm getting a little bit tense up in my hands or my arms for some reason, I feel it in my shoulders. And for me, I start to notice that, and I go, I hate trying to use the word calm down on myself,
Mm-hmm.
because it reminds me of being told to like stop. And
Right.
so I usually just kind of acknowledge that, hey, this is happening, and I'll focus on myself, and then just uh like if my shoulders are tensing, I try to focus on them to relax. But it
Right.
sounds like
Good.
you have a whole lot more skills, and
Yeah.
maybe that's one of them. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, I think partly what you're doing is you're getting grounded. You're staying in your
Yeah.
body, because when we get anxious, we tend to run. So we're actually
Yeah.
literally outside our body. Then we have that,
Mm-hmm.
often that disoriented feeling, which then makes
Mm-hmm.
us more scared.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my chapters is about this idea that you have a cycle. It's almost always the same. So it
Hmm.
starts, like you said, you know where it starts. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't do something, it'll keep going. What I'd say
Mm-hmm.
is, you've got some skills. So, that's great. But when you look at, so this is the exercises. You draw a circle like a
Mm-hmm.
bike, and you plot, this is what happens first, emotionally, physically, cognitively. That's how anxiety affects us. I don't know if I could pull up the circles. They're very tricky to put in a book. But you plot it 1, 2, 3, clockwise. Clockwise, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Clockwise on the top. So that's my
Mm-hmm.
anxious me circle. On the
Okay.
bottom is my calm me. So what you're doing is you're saying, well, first my breathing starts getting shallow. Then my
Mm-hmm.
legs start feeling wobbly, and then my hands get really uncomfortable. And then I
Mm-hmm.
tell myself, I got to get out of here, right? That
Mm-hmm.
cycle is definitely going to keep going. So what
Mm-hmm.
I teach is there's a calm skill for every anxious skill. And you could literally put your anxious me and your calm me together. So when you start breathing, instead of going, uh-oh, I got to get out of here, which really tells your anxious part, wake up, you go, wow, don't ever lie about it. That you don't lie to yourself, but say, I'm uncomfortable and I'm safe. And I'm going to work with my breathing right now. Okay, well, it's already gone to my hands. They feel really uncomfortable. So I'm going to do the skill that brings me more in touch with my hands. It might be touching, and my shoulders are up. So I'm going to just drop my shoulders. Every anxious, I can't call them skills, every anxious reaction has a calm skill. So what happens is over time, the more you practice that, the more it becomes natural to go, whoa, my breathing's, okay, I'm just going to breathe out. Yep, just going to breathe out. And it isn't true. In the middle of a panic attack, you can walk it back. It takes some practice. But the first thing about panic to know is that even though it feels awful and scary and icky, you're still safe. You're still safe. Yeah. It's going to run its course. And the more you fight it, the longer it's going to last. The more you let go of it. But that's tricky. It takes practice. It takes practice. I have this theory now that it's about having enough calm in the bank, right? People say they don't really want to do the practice unless they're anxious. Well, it would be easier to practice when you're not anxious. Get used to, I don't know how much you said your anxiety is better, but when people are anxious a lot, they don't even know what it feels like to be calm. And when they are calm, they're uncomfortable. It sort of makes sense. It almost, but I think as humans, we're supposed to be calm. I don't think anxiety is our normal state because we don't live in the woods anymore. We don't have to run from bears. Not really. I mean, not in the physical way, but so I think that the more you learn about yourself around this, and then I do a lot of work around with letter writing. So one of the letters I ask people to write is Dear Anxiety. So you would say Dear Anxiety is Keegan and fill in whatever comes up. And then the next letter is Dear Keegan, it's your anxiety. And really I know no one likes that one, but they do it. Because they're paying me, so they do it. But the idea is that you let your anxiety talk to you. And then the last part of that exercise is how can you and your anxiety work together? Okay. And often what people find is their anxiety surprises them. Their anxiety knows a lot about them. And working together is the only way to get out of this, where you don't I don't ever worry about getting anxious. Right. I worry about getting stressed, but not really. I mean, I use the skills that once you've practiced enough, they become part of the way you are. It's just like if your anxiety's right, becomes more natural. So one of my favorite skills that people really like is the idea of 3 words. And everybody can do this. So if your anxiety affects you emotionally, physically, and cognitively, you need 3 words that will bring you to a calm state. So they wouldn't be uh-oh or oh my gosh or run, right? They would be things like breathe, always breathe out first, focus, and then I have a bunch of focus exercises, and I'm safe. People like that one, I'm safe, or slow. Like for me, it was slow. It triggered me to slow down. And that was the turning point one day when I said, okay, if I'm going to get anxious and I have to leave the store, I'm going to, but I'm not going to run. I'm going to walk real slow. And what happened is I didn't get anxious. It didn't get worse, and I was able to stay. And then again, I thought, okay, well, so everything I'm doing is making me more anxious. And the whole thing is a paradox. We react to something, but the problem is that we're distorting what's going on. So I wasn't really in danger in the grocery store, right? Yeah. Prices maybe, but I really wasn't. But I kept thinking I was because I was afraid I'd get anxious.
Yeah. So it sounds like with it being its own entity of sorts, I love that thought, by the way, because that's kind of how I view my internal landscape. I have different. It's just it's way out there, but
Okay.
it goes in
Oh,
line
I've
with
heard it all.
yeah,
I
but
really do
it
think.
does yeah. But anxiety does to me have its own personality of sorts. And for me, I do notice that uh, whenever it is trying to protect me, it is normally doing so in just overreactive ways.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's generally what it is for a lot of other people.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. The overreacting, overthinking, over
mhm,
all of that because again, you're asking a kid part to figure out what to
mhm,
do. It
yeah.
doesn't. So one skill is moving. If you look at the world, here's an example for that fits for this because I agree with you.
Mhm,
If you look at the world through an anxious lens, let's say
mhm,
before this show, all you could think is, well, what if she doesn't sound very good? I don't know if this is going to work. What if I get anxious? What if, the picture falls off the wall? What if, right?
uh-huh.
You're going to produce anxiety. Okay. But
Uh-huh.
if you look at it like I'm really excited, this is going to be fun, everything's set up right, it's going to go really
Mhm,
well, and I'm going to be able to be present and grounded, totally different.
mhm.
So people can use this for going to when they have to go to the doctor. And already
Mhm.
they're already anxious for 3 weeks before they go to the doctor. They're going to be anxious
Yeah.
when they get there. But if they
Mhm.
start working ahead of time, so this is how I want to be in the doctor. I'm going to be calm. I might get a
Mhm.
little anxious, but I'm going to stay focused. And you practice that visually, that's what's going to
Mhm.
happen. And I've seen it a
Yeah.
lot, but it takes practice.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like this calm is a muscle of sorts.
Yeah. Oh, I like
Uh,
that. I might have to use that. I seriously am going to write that down.
Go for it.
And it's a
Uh,
muscle that we aren't using very much because I'm working on a workbook. I agree with you.
okay.
It's the idea of, so my chapter on that is called Building a Foundation of Calm. Right
Ah.
now, people that come to me are built on a foundation of anxiety. That's how they
Mhm.
see the world. They say things like, I was born anxious. I've always been
Mhm.
anxious. My mother was anxious. I'm anxious. None of that
Mhm.
has to be true, though. None
Yeah.
of that is written in stone. I think
Mhm.
that we learn it. I think we maybe inherit some of it. I think a lot of it is learned. If you have an
Mhm.
anxious parent, you're probably going to have anxiety or depression
Yeah.
or something,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we're learning. But we have to believe that we can learn something different with the right information.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
have to change the habit of anxiety. So I
Ooh.
say this a lot, and you said it earlier, recovery is not a straight line.
Mm-mm.
People can get better and have a big glitch. I like to call it glitches, and they're getting better and they have a glitch. Most
Mhm.
people, I've already said that in the beginning of the program, when it
Mhm.
happens, everyone falls apart. That's it.
Yeah.
It's never going to work. I'm never going to get better. So, what
Mhm.
if that glitch is a teacher? What if it's telling you
Yeah.
something and you just missed the lesson? So, we
Mhm.
try and reframe things, but not, like, I like to be real and truthful. Anxiety's already
Mhm.
been lying to you. So when
Yeah.
you get anxious, it doesn't feel good. I've read some
Mhm.
material that say, act like you're excited about it. Well, bull. I never could be excited about it. I never was, and I don't think I ever would be. And
Uh-huh.
don't say that. That's just lying to yourself. You could say, this is really uncomfortable, and I know what to do.
Mhm.
I know what to do
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Um. Sorry.
no, go.
uh. Man. I had like three trains go at once, and I tried to pay attention to each one to see which one I wanted to follow, and I think
Hmm.
they all left, unfortunately. But let's see. So I kind of wanted to explore the foundation of anxiety
Hmm.
because that sounds really on point with the way society runs nowadays,
Yep.
right? Because we're just on time frame after time frame after time frame, deadline after deadline after deadline, and that that's the thing is that I think a lot of this societal stuff is what's helping us build this anxiety platform, because
Yeah.
kind of like what you were saying, if we have parents that are anxious or someone or panicky a lot and then passes on to us, I think that really goes into that nature versus nurture. And I think I I want to say both of those have an effect on anxiety and panic, or at least from personal experience.
Yes.
And uh, so with society and stuff, that's got to be one of those hard ones to kind of break out of. But again, this is all internal stuff that we're working on. And so,
Hmm.
hey, look, I found one on the train. It
There you
turned
go. See,
around.
I knew it just waited. It's still there. It's there.
um, yep. And how you said, how you said that I said earlier that it's a spiral. It's always coming back around, and those lessons, uh, that usually come disguised as a curse or something, those usually turn out to be some of the biggest and best teachers that I've had.
Hmm.
But I had to walk through it, kind of like how you did at the store. And whenever I was in Nehemiah, whenever I was in my rehab, my counselor had a little sign on one of her tables, and it said, "The only way out is through."
It's through, right? Yeah.
And I was like, "Ah."
I don't want to. I
Uh
know.
huh. And
I know.
in recovery during the 12 steps,
Mm-hmm.
we have steps 8 and 9, and 8 is making a list of amends, and the 9 is acting those amends out.
Right.
And so 9 is one of those where it's like anxiety just skyrockets, because it's like, I got to go talk to this person and this person. And my original sponsor, I had asked, I was like, how do I know if they need to be on a men's list? And he was like, well, if you're walking down the grocery store aisle and you see someone and you need to turn around, you probably need to make an amends to them. And I was like, damn.
Oh, there you go. That's
But
actually good. Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing is too is that I'm 6.5 hours away from home, and so most of my amends are back way up there. So I was like, it's fine. I'll make phone calls and stuff, And he's like, nah, you got to do it face to face. You gotta get it
You have
uncomfortable.
to fully
And
engage with it, right?
uh-huh. And I was like, but that doesn't make sense. I'm still making amends. And he was like, no, it has a purpose,
Mhm.
because it's healing. It really is.
For
And
both people, absolutely.
yes, exactly. And that's the thing,
Yeah.
is that it helps heal the other person while helping heal oneself too, if the amends are applicable, amicable and stuff. But the thing is, and even in the big book, it's talking about how whenever we go to make amends, we have that anxiety, like, oh, this is not going to go well, blah blah blah. But usually, it's 9 times out of 10, it goes way better than what we thought. It's like, oh, I made an amends, and they go, oh, well, just keep doing what you're doing, or whatever. Like, don't worry about that. It's kind of like, whoa. And that's kind of what I've learned anxiety is a lot like. I'm fighting this false expectation of sorts that I've placed upon
Hmm.
myself, and society has helped place those things for me, because we have different standards to live up to. We have different characteristics we want to embody, because otherwise we're not culturally fit. And so for me, it was always just trying to fit inside of a box that I don't fit in,
Right.
you know? So,
Yeah. And seriously, let's not even talk about our society right now, but that is
no.
true. There's all this social media and all this pressure, and I have seen a big increase in anxiety with our younger. I mean, I don't know how old
Hmm.
you are, but the kids that kind of grew up with phones. When I gave
Hmm.
my kids phones, I had no idea they were computers. I didn't have a phone until I was an adult, and it wasn't like this. So I didn't realize
Mm-mm.
what they were being exposed to. I mean, they're pretty
Hmm.
sensible kids, but I think truthfully, we are not designed to be overstimulated the way we are.
Yeah.
And, by the way, I actually have a lot of respect for the 12 step program, and I have read the entire book. I thought the book was written,
Nice.
what, in the 40s? Wasn't he in the
Yeah.
40s?
Hmm.
And so much of it applies to life. I mean, I
Hmm.
read it when I was out of graduate school. It's fascinating that this
Uh-huh.
one man could make such an impact on the world as he has. So I really do think it's hugely wonderful program if you do it. And that's sort of what I tell people. I don't talk about 12-step, but I tell them, look, I really do believe my program works, but you have to do the practice. And to your point about going through stuff, so when I first started I got my license in 88. So in 1992, I was doing a program at Women's Center on anxiety, actually. And the goal was we would do this, confront your fear. And I didn't realize at the time I wouldn't have done that. So the goal was, everybody seemed to be afraid of this glass elevator. I was in the city of Chicago at Water Tower. And so that's what we were going to use. Well, half of them didn't show up for the exercise. The other half let me know they're never going in it. What I realized is that this is scary. We're just going to go over there and force ourselves through our anxiety. This isn't going to work. And I know there's ways to do it. But that was when I started to realize, but what if you had 5 different skills and you knew that if you start getting anxious, you do this? So for instance, now, if I have people that are, agoraphobic, I don't tell them go to the end of your block and see how anxious you're going to get. I say, open your front door. The minute you start feeling anxious, I want you to stop and do your calm skills. I don't care if it takes you 3 months to get out that door. It never does. I care that you're practicing calm. That's the skill that you're going to take anywhere, everywhere. It won't matter then. It's not even about whether you get 3 blocks from your house. It's about knowing you can. And this is the real thing that it took me a long time to get. Once I knew I could calm myself down, I stopped worrying about being anxious. Oh, and to your earlier point, anticipatory anxiety is usually stronger than any anxiety you'll feel or any experience. That what if thinking, that thinking, that power of the way our mind just around and around and around, that's what creates the symptoms. But we can change that. We can, I love this word, be curious. When your brain starts doing that, say, what's going on here? Not make it stop, because you can't, if you could make a thought stop, you would. So here's a great example. If I say, Keegan, do not think of a red balloon. Don't do it. Right, it's already there, right?
I'm colorblind.
Okay, don't think of a balloon. What color can you see?
That was a joke.
Okay. But you get the
first
point.
thing that pops in my head is a red balloon.
Right. And the point is, there's no red balloons in your screen or mine. Right? So that's the way our mind is so quick to attach. No, I was kind of checking. I didn't see.
Yeah, I was like, well, there is red.
I saw the red, so I tried to stay with balloon. But I think it's the way our brain will attach to a thought. And we don't have control of that. Trying to control your anxious thoughts, it was literally this. Here's the idea. If you have a thought, don't chase it down the road, jump off a cliff into the water after it. Let it go. And let it go by this. I'm curious about that. I'm just going to observe that. And the more that we...
Hold up real quick. It says your recording has stopped.
Oh.
So, all right, sweet.
Rejoin. So I think that if you try, like we have 6,000 thoughts a day, we can't control our thoughts. We really can't. No. There's this image that I will never forget. I don't remember this. I think it was the movie about Gandhi. And he's sitting in the middle of the road, with his leg crossed in this calm position, and the world is just continuing. There's noise and buses, and he's just sitting there. So we can be that. We don't have to be Gandhi, but we can be calm, because you're talking about society and the input we get and the overload and stimulation. We have the ability to quiet it down, though, by first off limiting some of that, the input, but also looking at how we're reacting. Right? I know, and my children know, that I can never watch a movie that has a dog in it. They're like, but it's good. Nothing's going to happen. I say, I don't know that. I'm not going to take a chance, because I can't get those images out. I rescue dogs. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So they're like, Mom, how old are you? I said, old enough to know it's not going to change. And I'm never watching Bambi with you. So forget it.
Uh,
I mean, these are just things I know, and I can
yeah.
honor myself that way. But
Yeah, for sure.
I know it's kind of funny, but there's things that we can not do, we don't have to
Hmm.
do. And we can take care, that's just taking care of ourselves
Hmm.
and managing. I think our society is way, way overamped all the time. Like,
Yeah.
have you noticed when you go in the doctor's office, they have music in the back office, music in the office, and the
Hmm.
TVs are on
Yeah.
and the volume's on, whether anybody's watching or not.
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
what did we used to do?
Go in there, maybe read a book, maybe
Yeah,
read newspaper,
yeah,
maybe
right.
conversate with each other,
I know,
maybe.
and yeah, I don't know if I can change the world around this, but I
Hmm.
do think that we have to manage some of that for ourselves, and that's one thing
Oh
we
yeah.
learned. Part of it is boundaries. A lot of times,
Hmm.
people with anxiety have issues with boundaries,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
so, one of the chapters I have is reclaiming your life
Hmm.
and healing. So once your anxiety quiets down with all my skills, then you got to work through whatever trauma you might have,
Uh-huh.
post traumatic stress, other things. Like, people lose a lot when they're anxious.
Hmm.
In some way, you have to go out and do amends and kind
Yeah.
of fix your life from all the damage. You didn't cause it, right? It wasn't,
Hmm.
it, but you now have the responsibility to choose the life you want as a calm person.
Oh
And I
yeah.
always say this, and be able to do whatever work you're supposed to do. Get,
Hmm.
your heart's desire. I used to say TikTok, but I can't say that now. But really, TikTok, we don't have forever. Like, you're
Hmm.
doing this because you clearly want to make a difference. But
Yes.
if your anxiety wasn't letting you, that's just a shame. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are in that place. And I'll tell you, I am on a mission to change it. I don't like the treatment people are getting. I think
Hmm.
it's a tricky one to. I just see people recovering. They get their life back.
Hmm.
And it's hard
And
work. There's no magic. I wish. I used to say in group, if I have a magic wand, I'd give it to you, but I would charge you a lot more for it. You know?
well, I find it awesome that we have people such as yourself that are leading the way and trying to help make people feel better in general and in specific areas that otherwise people don't realize are really messing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it does take a group effort. It does take a whole bunch of people talking about it to make other people say, oh well, maybe there is something kind of going wrong, or yeah, I kind of noticed that but I never said anything, but it does also carry with it that you said you don't know if you can really make the difference and whatnot, but there is such a thing as the ripple effect and the butterfly effect. So you never know. Sometimes those
Oh,
people
I
that you
just said
help.
I'm not taking on the whole of society. I'm just going to take
Ah,
on I know I can help the people that
there you
come.
go.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't overwhelm myself with the whole world.
that's
I'll
what
leave
you.
that for you
Okay.
younger people.
Oh yeah, no, I'm no. That goes to the younger generation too, not me. But it is definitely one of those things that I want to see a lot of people recover from, because having had dealt with it for years
Yeah.
myself, I know how paralyzing it is. I know how detrimental it is to oneself, and I mean having a pain induced panic attack several times going to the hospital really sucks. Or
Mhm.
just a panic attack in general really sucks
A
because
lot of
sometimes.
people go because the symptoms are very similar, and the
Hmm.
feeling is because, by the way, if you get anxious and you're breathing either shallow or too fast,
Hmm.
and you take in too much air, it sits in the top part of your lungs, and then you go, oh, try and take a deep breath. Oh, I can't take a deep breath. Oh my gosh, my chest is hurting. Oh my gosh, I wonder what's happening. Oh no, that's it. That's it. I'm having a heart attack.
Hmm. Yeah. It.
I actually did a talk maybe 30 years ago in an emergency room at the
Mm,
hospital. I did the class, and they said they have repeat customers that are having anxiety. And
mm,
so, how can they tell the difference?
yeah.
And, that's what we were working on. So yeah, it's been a problem. Most
So,
people go.
so what is one of the things that people can tell the difference between a heart attack and anxiety or a panic attack? Because that would have helped me out a long time ago.
Well, I don't know that. I'm not a doctor, so I have to be careful. I'm sure there are
Fair.
symptoms of a heart attack that are a little different. If
Mm-hmm.
your breathing is really elevated and you're breathing fast and you can breathe out and start to calm yourself down, it's most likely panic, right?
Okay.
But I know that
Yeah.
that it depends,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes I think it is hard to tell.
Yeah.
So because I
And
don't know the medical side as much as what I know is happening when you get anxious. So, the
mm-hmm.
first thing is always to breathe out first.
Yeah.
And whenever I say breathe out, people go, I go, okay, so now do the opposite, right? And think of it like a sigh. So just, and right away. And the other thing is those 3 words. So let's say for you, your 3 words were breathe, drop your shoulders, focus,
mm.
breathe. So instead of going, oh my gosh, what is this? Breathe. Yeah, but I have to. And the worry's still going to go. You just say
Mm-hmm.
focus. And
Mm-hmm.
the easiest focus exercise is literally this. You take a pen and you just look at it. Yeah, but I have lots to worry about, and I'm just going to stare at this purple pen. I'm just going to look at it. Yeah, but yeah, right? So instead of letting your anxious mind take over, you just allow that focus. You
mm.
can do it with your hand too. You want to do it with something that you have. What I
Okay.
tell people to be careful about is using your phones to distract yourself. Because although it may calm you down in the moment, you're
mm-hmm.
not going to learn. It's not teaching you much.
Mm-hmm.
So your words could also be breathe, quiet, slow, but they want to really be connected to what your anxiety symptoms are.
Mm. Gotcha.
And then you memorize those words. You write them
Mm-hmm.
on pieces of paper. You put them in your phone now. When I did it, it was back then. I wrote it on my hand.
uh,
And I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I wrote lots of
mm.
things on my hand. And then I went for a bike ride once and it all wore off. And I thought, uh-oh. So but what I did is I started to learn what to say instead of words that produce more anxiety.
Mm.
The minute you
Okay.
talk to yourself with anxious words like, uh-oh, oh my gosh, I have to get out of here. This is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now I'm in trouble. Look what I did, what you said. You're just inviting the anxiety in the door. You're literally opening the door for it.
That makes sense.
Right. And if you start to replace those, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do yet.
Mm-hmm.
Saying words like and instead of but. I'm never going to get over this, and I'll learn how. So
Mm.
there's ways that we talk to ourselves that will maintain anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So again, my book is full of all those ideas and questions and stories, and it's gotten good reviews from people. And
That's
people are
awesome.
using it. I want it to be a handbook,
Oh.
that you go, wait a minute, I'm struggling with, that you put together from that the skills that are going to work and
Mm-hmm.
practice those. The
Oh.
other thing about the 3 words is when you get anxious, don't think
Mm-hmm.
you'll remember them,
Huh.
because our mind is in anxious world. Got to get
Uh-huh.
out of here. What am I going to do? So just memorize them, or
Mm-hmm.
again, put them in your phone and then
Yeah.
read those over and over. Somebody said once, I had to do it 15 times. I said, all right. But he said, but then I calmed down. Okay, next time maybe it'll be 12. But you've been
Yeah.
saying anxious things for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's be realistic about what does it take? What does it take to change a habit?
It takes a long time. I think it takes, what is it, 90 days to break one,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it
Something
only
like,
takes 60, I think, to build a new one. And it takes
oh,
longer
there.
to break one than it does to build one up, I think.
And with this, what you're doing is you're just putting aside the anxious reactions and you're
Mm-hmm.
learning a new skill.
Okay.
And so I think about it this way: you can't be calm and anxious at the same time. You really.
No.
I
No.
like people want to challenge that, but you try and let me know.
No. If I mean, I can see where they get that idea, but it's not calm and anxious. It's its own feeling entirely.
Right.
Um, but I'll have to figure out what feeling that is, because I know which one you're talking about, but I agree it is not calm and anxious at the same time. It is
Yeah.
something that mimics, it mimics calmness, but it's more of a numbness.
Yes, and that's a freeze reaction, which actually is
Mm,
anxious reaction. So
yeah.
yeah, you're right. You're right. That's true. I mean, there is a difference. The other thing about practicing calm. So if I said, "Hey, Keegan, I know you're scared of whatever you're scared of, heights,
Yeah.
whatever," and so
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
just going to go up here and check this high building out, and we're going to hopefully walk through your anxiety. You're not going to want to do it. But if I say, let's go
Mm-hmm.
out and practice calm and use this building to do it, all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you don't have to react to it.
Because it's not a tall building.
Well,
It's just a
yeah,
building.
right. Right. That's true. I didn't add that tall building. I
Yeah.
don't know what you're afraid of. So the point is when we start to change that to I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go out and practice calm today, people are much more able and willing to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, anxiety is scary. This is not a lot of anxious people say they feel weak, and I say this is not for the lighthearted. This
Mm-mm.
is not an easy thing to experience, and your strength actually is in the fact that you've been through it.
Mm-hmm.
And people keep thinking, but if I keep having it, then I'm weak.
Mm-mm.
That's not true. You're
No.
having it and you're strong, but we need to find a way to change the anxious to calm.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole theory is we're moving from anxious to calm.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we are getting close to the end of the episode. So real
Yeah.
quick, uh, your book. Tell us about it again. Where can
Here's
we
my
find
book.
it?
You can get on Amazon.
Okay.
Anxiety and Panic: Your Path to Recovery. You might have to put my name in. Sometimes it's a little hard to search for it yet. I do have a website. I have
Oh,
Facebook. I have everything.
okay.
But Anxiety and Panic: Your Path to Recovery. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, only online. You can order it
Ooh,
and or ebook.
okay.
And then I send out newsletters and blogs. So from there, you can kind of find me, I think. I'm pretty sure. You can find me. You can also just Google me and
Oh,
email. Very reachable. Barbara Spaulding at hotmail.com. I'm
oh,
always
okay.
looking to help. I went through this at a time where there wasn't any support, and
Mm-hmm.
that made it so much more painful.
Yeah.
And, as a therapist and a coach, I really want to help people not have to experience this.
Mm-hmm.
So you could literally call me and I would talk and help you through some of it, get you in the right direction. So,
That is way too awesome.
yeah.
And for those listening, if you're wanting to check out her book and any of those links that she's talking about, head on over to retrievingsanity.com. And in the special guests section, you'll be able to find her episode and all of her links. So,
Thank you.
of course,
Well,
it's
thank you
always.
for having me. I think it's great that you're doing this and you're really genuine. You really, really care about people. We need a lot of that.
Well, thank you. It's one of those things that you can't really try at this. I'm just trying to get people's stories out there. I'm just trying to make it as painless as possible for everyone, I guess.
Right. Right. And
um,
that's what we need. We need a lot
yeah,
of that.
but it is also because of people like you that give me inspiration to do this kind of thing. So it goes full circle. Without you, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. So we need all the help that we can get. So again, with that being said, check out podcasts for
Thank
prevention,
you.
of course. And to the audience, check out podcasts for prevention. Check out her book, and also let's just go ahead and try to create a good mental health community all together. Oh, and real quick question, Barbara. Do you know the suicide hotline number?
No, no, I
Nope.
don't. Do you,
Uh,
do you need it?
yep. Nope. I don't
Oh,
need it.
I mean, do you want me to find it? Oh,
No, no, no.
I
The
know of it. I know it's out there.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. You do know it's out there,
Oh yeah.
and some people do, some people don't. But if we can teach our kids how to dial 911, we should be able to teach our friends and loved ones how to dial 988 if they're ever facing suicidal ideations.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, it's one of those things. Three little numbers can save your life or someone else's. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It is free. It is out there. It's run by volunteers for the most part. So if you get connected with someone, they want to see someone's light shine in the world. So,
Hmm.
um,
I have to look
but
into that. To
yeah,
see about if they take they or must be a volunteer group, right?
there's different things that go on with it. I've read different things about being a volunteer for it. So I've looked into it myself, and I went into podcasting. So,
Okay,
um,
that's okay.
yeah, but one of the things I do like to ask everyone is I like to have people on the show multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Usually have a decent bit of time in between, just because we let life kind of happen. We can catch up. Maybe you write another book in the
I
meantime.
actually am working on the second one.
Yes, sweet.
So there you go. Also, if people are, do you know what meetup.com is?
I've heard of it. I haven't used it though.
You should look because meetup started after 9/11 as a way to bring people together. But I've been doing a free group,
Okay.
once a month. The next one's next Tuesday on Meetup at 5:30 Central, and I just talk about anxiety recovery, and so
Sweet.
that's also available. People get a lot out of that. People get a lot out of seeing they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's a pretty big group, so it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to come back. Just let me know when you have an
Okay.
open slot, or yeah, I'd talk
All right.
about this forever.
Sweet. Well, Barbara, it has been an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your book with us and your expertise, because you've got a wealth of knowledge right up in
Hmm.
there. And I can't wait to pick your brain a little bit more on the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you. Sounds great. And I'll message you.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good night. Until next time, thanks for listening on WDJY 99.1 FM. And we'll see you next week. Shalom.